The hundreds of streets that make up the city of Dublin have borne witness over the years to many dark deeds. Warfare, murder, treachery, and brutal executions have at various interludes spilt blood on the cobblestones that now lie hidden beneath layers of concrete and tarmac. Traces of the troubled souls of the past who will not or cannot leave to go to the other realm are known to frequent the laneways and public houses that we visit to this day. They follow in our footsteps and breathe a cold, earthy breath down our necks, seeking to conclude their unfinished business. Sightings and stories of these apparitions are rife and continue to this day. One such story is that of the Dolocher, a beastly and murderous pig imbued with the spirit of a man named Dolocher that stalked the narrow lanes of the Liberties in the 18th century. Dolocher, an inmate of the infamous Black Dog prison in Cornmarket, had been arrested and convicted of the brutal murder of a young woman whose body was found close to the Guinness Brewery. Sentenced to death by hanging, he decided to take matters into his own hands and took his life while in his cell in the Black Dog. Dolocher's spirit did not die, however, as the murders continued, and during the dark winter that followed, a malevolent entity stalked the streets of Dublin, killing those who dared to walk late at night. The victims' clothes were often found to be shredded, as if they had been attacked by an animal. The culprit, it was decided, was none other than the murderer, Dolocher, who had returned in the form of a pig to continue his devious work, and became known as the Dolocher, which, in the Dublin tongue, morphed into Dolocher. The terrified residents of Dublin even resorted to a mass culling of pigs in the Liberties area in the hope that one would be the Dolocher and the murders would finally end. A short distance from the Black Dog prison, where Dolocher was held, could be found the gates of Hell, close to Christchurch Cathedral. Hell was a laneway that was renowned in Dublin as a place of debauchery and iniquity, and at its entrance gate near the top of St. Michael's Hill stood a wooden sculpture of the devil himself. The taverns, brothels, and general depravity spread out into the surrounding streets, such as Fishamble Street, Copper Alley, Skinner's Row, and even the crypt of Christchurch Cathedral, and the general area became known as Hell. Here you are likely to encounter an apparition known as the Green Lady, who appears as a green, misty spectre walking around the streets of Hell before vanishing through the medieval city walls near St. Odian's Church. The Green Lady is believed to be the spirit of one Dorcas Kelly, more famously known as Darky Kelly, the owner of the Maiden Tower brothel on Copper Alley, who was accused of being a murderer, witch, and even Ireland's first serial killer, after a search of the Maiden Tower revealed a stash of bodies hidden in the basement. Darky Kelly was convicted of the murder of a shoemaker by the name of John Dowling, and in 1761 she was partially hanged and then burnt to death on Gallows Hill, close to St. Stephen's Green. The Green Lady now wanders endlessly around the streets of Hell, looking for vengeance on the men who wronged her. There are several places throughout the city where not only ghosts appear, but even the devil has been seen. On St. Mary's Place, just north of O'Connell Street, you will find an imposing deconsecrated church called St. Mary's Chapel of Ease, that is more commonly known as the Black Church. Constructed in 1830 to the designs of John Semple, the church once served a wealthy community who lived in the surrounding townhouses. As its prosperous parishioners gradually moved out of the city, the church's fortunes declined and a darker side emerged. Tales of evil apparitions began to surface, and one particular story of how to summon the devil. If you ever visit the Black Church on Mary's Place, be careful not to walk around its perimeter too many times, as the city's lore warns that to do so 5 times will summon the devil himself. To the south of the city, there is a range of mountains that is home to a windswept and lonely hill named Mount Pellier. Atop this hill sits the ruins of a building that for 300 years has kept watch over the city with an evil eye. Ask any local what the most haunted place in Dublin is, and they are likely to tell you a tale of the notorious Hellfire Club and rumours of depravity, desecration, ritualistic killings, and how the devil appeared not once but twice. This is the story of the most haunted building in Dublin and the debauched practices of a group of wealthy and powerful young men who were members of the Dublin Hellfire Club in the 18th century. Today, the Hellfire Club is a popular destination for hill walkers, horse riders, and those with an interest in all things paranormal. Close to Rathfarnham in South Dublin, the hill is reached via a winding and wooded old military road. Passing the former estate of Lord Massey on the left, you will arrive at the Hellfire car park. From here it will take you approximately 20 minutes to reach the top of the hill, a route that passes through the dark, dense and foreboding commercial woodlands of Quilcha, with only the slightest traces of the native Irish forest that once covered these mountains. As you emerge from the woods, the ruins of the Hellfire Club finally come into view. The building that has stood here since the 1720s is open to the public, and the views it offers over the entire city of Dublin are breathtaking. To understand how this building earned such a sinister reputation, we need to take a step back in time to the 1720s, when the ruin now known as the Hellfire Club was constructed. Built as a summer residence and hunting lodge by an influential politician, lawyer and landowner named William Conolly, often known by his nickname the Speaker Conolly, mistakes were made that would curse the building right from the beginning. This area of Dublin has been occupied since prehistory, and the mountaintop locations like these were used as sacred burial places for the kings that once ruled over these lands. On top of Montpellier Hill was the largest passage tomb in the area that originally had the same layout as the tomb in Newgrange, and had been respected and preserved by the local community for millennia. None of this mattered to William Conolly, and his desire to build a hunting lodge far outweighed any silly local superstitions. As the builders moved in on the hill, the passage tomb was destroyed. Its stones were robbed and used to construct the lodge. It is said that a standing stone was also taken and used as a lintel for one of the fireplaces. The lodge that he named Mount Pellier stands partially on top of the remains of the ancient tomb. The new lodge also gave its name to the hill on which it stands, and the original Irish name was lost to history. Destroying sacred sites in Ireland such as passage tombs or those used by the fairies, bears a hefty risk, and shortly after construction was finished, a great wind came and blew the roof off Mount Pellier Lodge. This was seen as a clear reprisal from the other world for Conolly's desecration of the passage tomb. He persisted, however, and rebuilt the lodge with a strong vaulted stone roof that still stands to this day. While these events were taking place on top of the hill, down in the city below, plans were being hatched by a group of influential and wealthy young men to begin a club that was dedicated to debauchery, immoral acts, and rumour had it, practices of the occult, inspired by the original Hellfire Club that was formed in England in 1718 by Philip Wharton, the first Duke of Wharton, and his wealthy friends. A group of young men gathered in the Eagle Tavern on Cork Hill on present-day Parliament Street and established the Irish Hellfire Club. These young bucks, as they referred to each other, included Richard Parsons, the first Earl of Ross, Simon Luttrell, the first Earl of Carhampton, James Worsdale, a high society portrait painter, and Henry Barry, the fourth Baron of Santry. These men were all sons of the ruling class of nobility and possessed wealth, power, influence, and an overwhelming sense of entitlement. Their days were spent visiting private members' clubs to gamble and drink, followed by the many brothels that operated in the city. They lived a lavish lifestyle, while the poor people of Dublin and Ireland struggled to survive. For these men and their peers, Dublin was a playground, and their actions, which rarely had any consequences, became the talk of the town. Jonathan Swift described these young bucks as a brace of monsters, blasphemers, and bacchanalians. Most of their meetings took place in the Eagle Tavern, but in the 1730s, the club rented Mount Pellier Lodge from the Conolly family and began meeting there. It was a perfect location, you might say, for a secretive group to experiment in matters of the occult, away from the prying eyes in the city below. An interesting coincidence to note is that the land William Conolly purchased to build the lodge was previously owned by none other than Philip Wharton, founder of the original Hellfire Club in London. No doubt this helped to influence the club's decision to hold meetings here instead of the Eagle Tavern. So what actually took place here? Many stories have been passed down over the years involving gambling, excessive drinking, animal sacrifice and devil worship. Although the club was very secretive, they brought with them to Montpellier servants, cooks and ladies of the night to cater for their needs, and the strange comings and goings from the lodge at all hours of the night were noted by local tenants. This would explain how the stories of their practices leaked from within the thick walls of the club. Members of the club were known to have a particular interest in the devil and actively sought to summon him to their meetings. Each evening the club meetings began with a ritualistic drink of scoltine, an unusual concoction of whiskey, melted butter and eggs that was placed in the centre of the table in a large silver bowl. An empty chair was always saved at the dining table in case the devil did appear, and one member of the group, Richard Parsons, was even known to dress like Satan and had been given the name the King of Hell. The most famous tale from the Hellfire Club centres on a late night game of cards at the hunting lodge. As the members gambled frivolously with the money earned by poor tenant farmers, a knock on the door was heard, and a stranger was invited in from the dark, stormy night and asked to join the game. One club member later dropped one of his cards on the floor, and bending down to retrieve it, he saw a pair of cloven hooves where the visitor's feet should be. As he raised his head above the table, the stranger instantly vanished in a ball of flames. This was not the only encounter with the devil at the Hellfire Club, as another story tells of how Simon Luttrell, also known as the worst man in England, who had gambled his way into massive debt and promised his soul to the devil in exchange for the clearance of these debts. The devil took him up on the offer and came looking for Luttrell on this spot. Upon seeing him, Luttrell instantly lost his nerve and fled down the hill through the dark woods. Luttrell also had a hand in the creation of the Green Lady, as it has been suggested that the real reason for Darky Kelly's execution was that she was pregnant with his child and had petitioned him for financial support. The Hellfire Club were known to take great pleasure in mocking the religious practices of the church, and often held their own black masses here in honour of the devil. These included animal sacrifice and even a human sacrifice on at least one occasion, when a person with dwarfism was murdered here. On another occasion, a priest called to the lodge to investigate the rumours that were rife in the local community, and found members of the club sacrificing a black cat, on which he subsequently performed an exorcism and released a demon from its body. Several curious members ventured up to the lodge over the years to try and see for themselves what was taking place. The lucky ones were so traumatized that they never spoke of their experiences, while the unlucky were found dead the following morning. The hunting lodge was eventually destroyed by fire, and the activities of the club had to be moved a short distance down the hill to the steward's house. Multiple stories emerged as to how the fire started, including that a servant who accidentally spilled a drink on a member's coat was doused in whiskey and set alight. The steward's house is also said to be haunted, with reports from residents of poltergeist activity and frequent sightings of a large black cat with red eyes passing through the walls that is thought to be related to the animal sacrifice activities of the club. Over the following years, as the club members gradually died off, the Dublin Hellfire Club fizzled out, but the stories of their nefarious activities will never be forgotten. Today you can walk through what remains of the infamous hunting lodge and explore the servants' quarters on the lower levels and the club dining rooms on the upper level, where their black masses and sacrifices took place. It remains to this day a dark and eerie building that is haunted by the souls of those who were murdered within its walls for the amusement of its members. When exploring the dark rooms, perhaps cast an eye to the now mud-covered floors to look for the cloven hoof prints of its most infamous visitor.